Hello and good afternoon, class. How are you doing today? Hope that you are all fine and safe. Well, thank you for our discussion before our lesson right now about our last week's lesson, where we talk about the Earth and how the Earth orbits around the Sun. And also we talked about the high tide and low tide. Remember that? How the moon affects the tide of our water in our planet Earth. Well, today we are going to continue talking about the moon in Unit 10. Today we're going to start our lessons on page 100, which is entitled Waxing Moon and Waning Moon. So what is a waxing moon? What is a waning moon? Can you briefly explain something to me on our Telegram page? Also explain it to our classmates if you know what a waxing moon or a waning moon is. I will leave this question open for the next few minutes before I tell you what a waxing moon and a waning moon is. Okay, for now, can you please take out your book and turn to page 100? Page 100. Page 100 is number 3 in our Unit 10 sections. It's entitled Waxing Moon and Waning Moon. And page 10 have a brief paragraph of a reading text. So what I want you to do is read the paragraph and record your voice and send it to my Telegram page or post it up on our group page about the moon, okay? I will give you maybe a quick 5 minutes to read this onto our page. And when you read that, I have a list of questions here about the moon, how it affects our planet, and also why is it called waxing moon and waning moon. So as we have learned last week, we should know this question already, right? My first question to you is, what is the moon? We've been studying moon for the past 2 weeks. Also, we have studied the moon in our science class, as I recall about last month. We have discussed that pretty lately, so you should know what the moon is, and you should answer that quickly for me. Okay, if you have already done that, so I also have a list of 3 questions here that I would like to ask you before we start our lessons. The first question is, does the moon have its own light source? Yes or no? And I want you to give me an example of your answers. If you say the moon have its own light source, if you say yes, tell me how and why does the moon create its own light source? If your answer is no, give an example of how the moon doesn't have its own light source. Again, I will leave this open for another 5 minutes for you to answer me before I give you the answers. And number 2, how does the moon orbit around the Earth? As we have learned last week, we know the sun, as we know the Earth orbits around the sun, right? It takes 365 days, 1 whole year for the Earth to go around the sun. Remember that? If you don't, you can review our last week's lesson and that will entail that. So now for the moon, how long does the moon take to orbit around the Earth? And how does the moon orbit around the Earth? Again, if you read your text on page 100 at the top, it will tell you all that. Or you can do your own research. And you will come up pretty much almost the same thing, but it will give you a more in-depth, explanations. Okay, my third question to you is, do we see the same shapes of the moon each night? So every night, do you see the same shapes of the moon? Yes or no? Sometimes you see a half moon. Sometimes do you see a crescent moon? Or sometimes do you see a reverse crescent moon? Yes or no? And do you know what is the name or what the name of that moon shape is called? I hope you do. If you don't remember some of this, you can review your science lesson that we went through a few months ago, and it entails you all the shapes and sizes of the moon. As you see on our page 100, there are a lot of shapes of the moon and different size phases of the moon. Okay. For your answers on number 1, does the moon have its own light source? The answer is no. The moon, just like the Earth, does not have its own light source. It gets its light source from the sun. So the sun is the main light source in our universe, right? Yes, I hope so, because as we know, on our planet Earth and the moon and all the planets on our solar system gets its light source from the sun. That's the sun generates all the light source for us, right? Yes, so An example of your answers. The moon does not give out its own light source. It reflects the light of the moon, from the sun to the moon to Earth. So the light source that we see from the moon each night is from the sun, reflection, right? It's like a mirror. When the sun shines off to the moon, and it reflects back the light to us so we can see it at night. Hope you remember that from our last week's lessons and the week lessons before. If not, we can continue discussing this on our Telegram page. Okay, now on to the waxing moon and waning moon. What is a waxing moon, you might ask? If you read the paragraph or the sentence on page 100, it will explain to you what the waxing moon is. I will read it to you right now briefly. If you want, you can read it with me, starting from the waxing moon. The waxing moon is the lunar phase where the moon first begins to appear until it is a full moon. It takes 15 nights. You see that? The waxing moon is the lunar phase where the moon first began after it appears as a full moon. So after the full moon, this is the moon. When there is a full moon and the moon begin to rotate again, starting at full moon, this is called the waxing moon. Waxing moon, after the full moon. So after the full moon, it is called the waxing moon. So now we know after the full moon is the waxing moon, then what is the waning moon? The waning moon also is on the bottom of the page. It explains to you what the waning moon is. I'm going to read it for you. A waning moon is the lunar phase where the moon begins to darken until it disappears from the sky. It takes 14 to 15 nights. So as we understand here, after the full moon makes its full rotations, you see this? After the full moon makes its full rotation, starting from the crest all the way to the full moon again, that is called the waxing moon. But in the waning moon, after the full moon, when the moon starts to disappear again, that is called the waxing moon. Okay, you got that? This is only one page of reading on page 100. I want you to read it, reread it, until you understand it. Then you can also explain it to me, that I know you understand it. And my second question to you is, how does the moon orbit around the earth? As it says there, you know, the moon doesn't orbit straight. It orbits at a tilt. So the moon is at an angle while it orbits the earth. And my third question to you is, do we see the same shapes of the moon each night? The answer is no, because every night the moon shifts. When the moon shifts, the shape changes. So we do not see the same shape of the moon each night. No. Okay, you got that, class? Okay, this is the end of our first video. And after this first video, let me know. I will drop you your first task. Again, your first task will have 2 exercises. The first exercise is about the moon's shape. And the second exercise is about reading assignments about the moon, and I want you to answer the following questions about the moon. Again, I will give you 40 minutes for this first task. Once you completed this task, let me know so I can correct it and grade you back your scores. Again, if you have any problems or not understanding any of the words, let me know and I will explain it to you. Okay? Till our second video class, see you then. Hello class, welcome back to our second video for today's lesson. Once again, I want to thank you for submitting me your first task. Most of you have done a really good job on it, and some of you still haven't sent me your task yet. So if you haven't, please submit your task to me, that I will correct it and grade it for you. Remember, it is really important if you send me your task, because it will reflect on your overall score, so you will get a high grade at the end of our school years. Okay class, on our first video we have talked about the waxing moon and the waning moon. Some of you have asked me that how do we know which phases of the moon begins and where does it start and where does it end? Okay, I have a few diagrams here about the moon and where each phases begin. I will post these pictures up onto your Telegram page or on our Telegram page so we all can see it and have a better understanding of it, okay? After I post this up, you can also ask me more questions about the moon phases, and we will discuss it together in class. Okay, as we said here, the waxing moon. The waxing moon begins after the new moon, and it ends at the full moon. So whenever you see the new moon, that is when the waxing moons begin. It starts at the crescents, when we see less part of the moon, then it goes to the first quarter, then the gibbous, then it goes to the full moon. Here are some brief explanation what a waxing moon and a waning moon is. It is the same thing as in your book on page 100, but it might have a clear meaning for you. On this worksheet here, it said the waxing moon. The moon is appearing to get larger. So when you see from your eyes, look up in the sky, and you see like a very big moon, seems very big, that is what you call a new moon. So when you see a new moon, that is when the waxing moon begins. From its crest all the way to the gibbous to the full moon. And for the waning moon, the moon is appearing to get smaller. So when you look up in the sky and see the moon at night, and the moon appears small to you, or small to your eyes, that is when the waning moons begin. Can you understand that? When you see a big moon in the sky, it looks real big, that is what you call a new moon. And when you look up in the sky and see a small moon, that is what you call the waning moon. Okay, you got that? We will, if you have any questions, just ask me on our Telegram page, and we will discuss this in class together, okay? And again, this is the same diagram as this diagram, but this diagram have a clear picture. So you can see where the new moons begin, and the parts of the moon of the crescents, all the way to the full moon. And after the full moon is when the waning moon begins. It also has its periods till it reaches the new moon. Okay, again, I will post this up on our Telegram group page so we can have a better viewing. Okay, class, now on to our second task. There will be 2 parts to your second task, just like our first task. Again, for the first part of task 2, you will have some readings about the moon. After you read the articles about the moon, I want you to answer the questions about the moon. Also, the same thing as the second part. Again, for the second task, I will give you 40 minutes to complete. Once you complete it, please send it to my personal Telegram where I can correct it and give you back your grade. Okay, class, this is the end of our second video. See you on our third video. Hello class, welcome back to our third and final video for today's lesson. So class, what have you learned today about the moon? Can you tell me when a waxing moon begins and a waning moon begins? And when does each phases of the moon end? I will give you a few minutes to answer me these questions. Once you have answered, please post it up in our Telegram post so I can see that you have answered it. Also, your classmates can also see that you have know what a waxing moon is and a waning moon. Again, class, like our previous lesson, I will upload some bonus questions for you. So you will have till the end of our class session, the end at 5 o'clock, to ask me your bonus questions. And your bonus question will be worth 4 points. For last week, I see most of you have answered me your bonus question, but some of you have it wrong. So this is a chance for you to do some quick research and understand the bonus questions. Again, the new moon. The new moon, when the moons appear to be really big and really huge, that is the beginning of the waxing moon. And when you see a small moon up in the sky, or when you look up at night, you see a small moon, that is the beginning of the waning moon. The waning moon is when the moon starts its rotation over again and starts with the new moon. Again, thank you for our dialogue on our Telegram page, because I can see now that most of you have understand the moon and how it operates and how its gravitational pulse affects our planet, right? Like what we have learned last week about high tides and low tides. The moon's gravitational pull, it is not stronger than the sun, but since it's so close to the earth, its gravitational pulls more of Earth's gravities during each phases of the moon. That's how it affects our high tides and low tides, right? Remember we talked about that last week? Also, we have talked about it in the beginning of our first video. Okay? If you have any more questions about the moon or its phases or when each phase is in, you can still ask me and we still can communicate and discuss more about the moon. Okay, class, after the video is played, let me know and I will post you your homework. Please turn in your homework to me, okay, when you are finished. Your homework will be more assignments, from reading assignments to answering this assignment. But on this assignments, I want you to read it, read the paragraph, and think of the main idea. So think of what this article is talking about. That's what it's asking you, the main idea. And I want you to write in your own word what the main idea is and the conclusion sentence. So when it ends, what does the ending means? I want you to write it in your own word. Again, I want you to write at least 25 words or more for each question. Okay, class? 25 words or more. So if you write less than 25 words, I will deduct point from you. That means I will minus points from you. So 25 points or more. Okay, class, this is your homework, and you will have till the start of next week's lesson to submit it to me. Okay, this is the end of our lesson today, and we will see each other again next week. For now, goodbye, class.